It was the year of Happy by Pharrell Williams, Let It Go by Idina Menzel, and Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke.
Did you say something?
Hello and welcome once again to the Darkened Room of Music Conversation. I'm Chris.
And I'm Darren.
Today we're going to take a look back at the year 2014. Now, it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't.
But I wanted to talk about this year. I kind of picked this year because it was the year that I started noticing some of this pop stuff is not so bad anymore.
So what do you think the reason for that was? What was it that year?
I don't really know. Maybe it was I just wasn't paying attention. For the longest time through all of the 2000s, I was all about AAA.
Yeah.
You know, the singer-songwriter stuff. And, of course, I started a new job at that point.
Right.
In 2007. And still into all that stuff. But then I started noticing as I became an Uber driver. And I would play music for the passengers, you know, try to cater to them.
Yeah.
And I would pick a few pop songs out. And, you know, I'd started noticing, man, there's actually some decent stuff in here. It's like pop's kind of come a long way.
Yeah.
It's so yeah, it's just I started to notice a lot.
Yeah, and I had a similar experience with pop music. It was a few years before that, but I happened to be watching a Grammy show one night, and I saw a few performances, and I'm like, and I usually don't watch shows like that, in all honesty.
Right.
And I'm like, I like some of these songs, and then, you know, so it kind of got me investigating. So I get it. That's cool. It's weird how things trigger like that, just out of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah, so the great stuff that came out that year, I mean, the first thing I noticed was that the kind of soulful crooner kind of thing was kind of making a comeback. John Legend, All of Me was a song I loved.
I love that song, and I love him. I think he is a really fantastic
he's a great
artist.
Talent, yeah.
Yes.
Great voice.
No doubt.
I also like Sam Smith. I don't think you liked him quite as well, but
and those songs were big. I heard those songs a lot at that time. Yeah. And both of those artists, I'll say this, they would have been legit in any era.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, whether it was the 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way up to current, you know, they have those types of voices that are just accessible, and I totally understand why you would like it.
Yeah. And another song that came out that year that I liked when I first heard it because it was such a throwback, like the soulful singers were. I don't care much for it now. It wore thin on me.
Sure.
You know, I probably don't ever want to hear it again. But it was Meghan Trainor's All About That Bass.
Yeah.
Now, what I liked about it was that 50s doo-wop.
Right.
And it was on the pop charts and being played like crazy.
And I liked her voice.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And it got played in so many commercials, I remember, at the time.
It did, yeah.
So
it totally did. And it was a gimmick, you know.
Yeah.
It was a novelty song.
Sure.
But the fact that, you know, something in that style was suddenly burning up the charts made me take notice.
And it was produced very cool. That's another thing about it that I thought worked about the song.
It was.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the rock artists and the singer-songwriter style kind of thing and the indie rock.
Right.
It was making a comeback in the charts that year as well.
Right.
That was the year that Imagine Dragons really hit their stride with their popularity with Demons and Radioactive.
Right. And I'd heard them a couple of years before that and really liked them. But you're right. 2014, man, you could tell they were kind of here to stay.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it.
OneRepublic, I really loved that song.
Yeah.
That was the, it was kind of a dancey song, but it had the acoustic elements in it. American Authors is one I think you didn't like quite as well.
I just got tired of it. Really.
Best Day of My Life, yeah. And that got used in a lot of commercials.
It sure did, and that was one of the things that kind of burned me out on the song. But still a good song. I'm not denying its accessibility, and there's something to be said about it.
And they have other great songs too, so you should check them out. Go deeper than just this one cut.
Will do.
Yeah.
Noted.
Paramore, Ain't It Fun? That was kind of a rocky song.
Yeah.
It was quite popular that year.
And they are Nashville-based, right?
They are, yes. Yeah. They are indeed. And one song that was just weird to me because it sounded so 80s with elements of 90s was Bastille Pompeii.
See, I like that song.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the pop charts.
Yeah.
You know, it just didn't sound right next to Demi Lovato.
Yeah. So. It does seem like that year, I don't know if it was, and you see this in music throughout history, there's certain years that it's like program directors are like, all right, let's dig a little deeper and see what we can come up with. And maybe it's just circumstantial, you know, we all know that a lot of times it's what the labels are pushing.
True.
But you're right, that year was kind of, as I did my own, background information getting ready for this episode, I did notice that as well. It seemed like there was a big mix, a big variety on the pop charts.
Right. Right, and that's what got me to take notice so much.
Yeah, it's weird how timing like that can be so influential on you when musically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Other rock bands that kind of were on the softer side. You had Passengers Let Her Go.
Yeah.
That was used in a Bud commercial, I think, during the Super Bowl. The Neighborhood Sweater Weather. Kind of in the vein of Coldplay, I would say.
Yeah.
And
you see a lot of that.
Yeah.
In the vein of Coldplay.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah.
They had made a comeback. Was it before or after? I need to look that up.
They had released an album in 2013 and had a couple of hits. And Coldplay's,
that was the one.
Yeah. Coldplay's pretty interesting. And 2014 was a big year for them, don't get me wrong. But Coldplay, they're one of those bands that, they've had a nice long career, but there's certain years that they catch fire on the pop charts. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that when I was doing my research. They had, songs like... Ghost Stories, it won the Grammy that year. Sky Full of Stars, was a top 10 pop hit as well. So, it was one of those years that they actually did make the pop charts.
Yeah.
So
And they still have pop credibility. It was, years later that they did a collaboration with the Chainsmokers.
Yeah, and I think that they're very similar. I don't want to get off on a tangent talking about Coldplay. We could probably do a whole episode. I like Coldplay.
Yeah. Oh, I do too, yeah.
And I think that they were kind of like this generation's U2.
Yeah.
Musically, I think they're kind of different, although I think they are definitely influenced by U2. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they are an influence like U2 to this generation. So
absolutely.
Just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah. Another song that year that it's almost a guilty pleasure. I almost hate admitting that I loved the song was Echo Smith's Cool Kids.
I like it.
Yeah, it was a polarizing song, though. I remember talking about it at work, and you either loved it or you hated it.
Exactly.
I liked it. One person said it sounds like a Rocky or Taylor Swift. So, I'm like, well, okay, maybe I can hear that, but no.
Yeah. Well, you hit on a couple of points, too, without even realizing it. It seemed like, all through the downloading age, I guess we want to call it.
Yeah.
Songs getting played in commercials are a big deal.
Yeah.
It's like a lot. If you hear a song on the radio, a lot of times it predated the radio by being in a commercial or vice versa. And used to, when we were growing up, people thought, oh, that's selling out and stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's not that big a deal. That's just part of the game.
Yeah, well, in the internet age and the streaming, the downloading,
you have to do it. You got to make money where you can make it.
It's a source of revenue.
Absolutely.
And, I can't blame them for doing it.
Not at all.
I don't disparage them for it.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Dennis DeYoung one time, and he was talking from Styx, and he was talking about that, and he pretty much allows Styx music to be used in commercials and all that. And then he said it had a lot to do with how hungry he is at the time.
Right.
He said he did turn down. I think it was eBay one time wanted to use a Styx song, and he turned it down. And then he's like, and it was one of those times I wasn't as hungry as other times. So anyway, I didn't mean to sidetrack us there.
No, that's quite all right.
Yeah.
This year also saw some acoustic artists who started to turn poppy. Ed Sheeran, one of them.
Yeah.
I remember hearing Ed Sheeran, before the turn of 2010, I think.
Yeah.
He was still just an unsigned act, and I found one of his songs on YouTube and loved it. And it was stripped down acoustic.
Yeah, and I think he didn't he get kind of big in the UK and stuff before here?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard anything that I disliked by him.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest, and he gets it.
The big hit for him was "Don't" that particular year,
right?
Which is a great song, groovy song. I love it.
Yeah.
And then Avicii did a remix, or kind of a collaboration with an acoustic guy called "Wake Me Up." He was kind of a blues, soulful singer, and that made me pay attention more to the EDM style.
Yeah.
I'm like, this sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
For years, the whole techno and EDM and the rave scene. It seemed like all of that just sounded the same to me.
Right.
And it didn't seem there was much structure to it. It was just a bunch of noise.
And I'm a big fan of that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm not trying to criticize it. That's just how it sounded to me.
Yeah.
So when Avicii came out and then Latch by Disclosure, which had Sam Smith as guest vocals, I started paying more attention to artists like Zedd. Like, I love the song Clarity. I think it's an awesome song. So, that made me pay more attention to the EDM and changed my taste, really.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm a rocker at heart.
Yeah.
Always have been.
Yeah.
And but as the 2000s moved on, I did kind of gravitate to a lot of that type of music, Mike Snow and stuff like that. I just like it.
Yeah, and I loved Moby, the Play album when it was out. I loved that. And of course, in the 90s, I loved Enigma.
Yeah.
But those seem to have structure to me, and some of them were like smooth grooves. I'm a big fan of the smooth grooves.
Right.
In fact, go to Spotify and check out Christopher's After Hours. And
there you go.
There's a lot of stuff on there like Massive Attack and Thievery Corporation, as well as some newer stuff that I found. So that's a great playlist. I'm really, really into that. 2014 also saw some females that were, I would say if they came out in the 90s, they would have been played exclusively on alternative.
I agree. And I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, one of them is Tove Lo, the song Habits Stay High. Mm-hmm. It seemed like a Fiona Apple kind of song to me.
Totally.
But it was played exclusively on pop and not alternative.
Right.
So, I thought that was kind of cool.
I know we're talking about 2014, but Billie Eilish, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
That I remember the first time that I heard of Billie Eilish, and once again, I don't want to get us sidetracked here.
Yeah.
It was my really good friend's young teenage son, was all into it, and he usually likes pop stuff, Taylor Swift and stuff like that. I'm like, that's an unusual choice, and when especially when I heard her, I'm like, man, this would be alternative.
Yeah, totally.
Back in the 90s. So I get what you're saying.
And then another female artist, Lorde, was both played on alternative and pop in the beginning with her song Royals.
And of course, when you just said that was the first artist that I thought.
Oh, that's what you were thinking. I thought you might have.
And I like Lorde.
I threw you a curveball. Lorde is great. Yeah. Really love the stuff she does.
God is good.
What?
You said Lorde is great.
Lorde is great. Right over my head. Yeah. All right. So also that year was a group called Magic and a group called Nico and I think it's Vines or Vins. I'm not sure. I've meant to look the pronunciation up. I can't even speak real words. Rude by Magic, Am I Wrong by Nico and Vins. There was kind of a reggae kind of influence in there, and it was just cool. It was refreshing to hear on pop radio. It was kind of different. So,
right.
Yeah. All of these songs here are what really made me pay more attention to the pop world.
Right.
And it didn't change my taste, as I said before. It just broadened my taste.
And so looking back on it, you think that this was an important year as far as you personally, you don't think that the pop music has been as good since then, or what?
No, I think it's still, a lot of it is still good.
Yeah.
I mean, the pop is always going to churn out the cut and paste,
the lowest common denominator stuff.
It's always going to do that, but there's still great stuff coming out even today.
Right. So, well, it's kind of weird when you're talking about music and your taste and whether you want to explore or whatever. I'm a firm believer that a lot of times music finds you and not the other way around. So it sounds like that was a lot of what happened for you in this particular year.
I would say that exactly. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So you wanted to comment on some of the albums that came out that year?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the best-selling albums in the world of that particular year. Because, as the world's gotten seems so big, it's gotten smaller in a lot of ways. And a lot of times stuff that's popular here is the same stuff that's popular in the UK, for instance.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you can't mention 2014 without talking about Taylor Swift's 1989.
Yeah.
Now, I actually think it's a good record. I really do. And I remember talking to you about it at the time. And, I think the following year, maybe 2 years later, Ryan Adams did his own take of that whole record.
And his release is what really made me focus on the lyrics and the song structure.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, the girl can write.
Yeah.
These are good songs.
Exactly. I like the song Style. That's probably my favorite Taylor Swift song. Every time I still hear it, I just reach over there and turn it up.
Yeah.
I like the song. Put me in jail. All right. The next... All right. The next one is... and that record obviously was the biggest selling record, I'm pretty sure, of that whole year.
Yeah.
You talked about Ed, his album Multiply, which is how it's pronounced. I thought it was X all these years.
I thought it was X for the longest time.
Yeah, but it's pronounced Multiply. Thinking Out Loud, it won 2 Grammy Awards that year.
Yep.
We talked about Coldplay already. That was a big seller. You know, you mentioned Sam Smith already. He had a tremendous year in sales in 2014. You know, Stay With Me. Did you mention that one? I can't remember.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And I'm Not the Only One. You know, is the number 5 song in the country.
Great song.
Yeah. And I really like the piano in that song. Like when it starts off, it's like, is this an Elton John song?
Yeah.
You know, so very cool. And then some old rock and roll, war horses, dinosaurs. Sold a lot of records in 2014.
Yeah.
AC/DC's Rock or Bust. 2.7 million copies sold in this day and age.
Dude, AC/DC, their fans are so hardcore, they're going to sell 2.7 million every time.
This is true.
Yeah.
Demi Lovato, 9 million copies of the soundtrack, you know, the song Frozen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the soundtrack to Frozen.
Yeah.
Did you hear me? 9 million copies.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Pink Floyd released The Endless River that year, 2.5 million worldwide. Did you have any idea that it sold that many copies?
No, I didn't pay attention to the numbers on that one.
2.5 million.
Yeah.
And then One Direction. You know, I wasn't a big One Direction fan at the time.
No.
I just didn't hear them that much. You know, I love Harry Styles.
Oh, he's fantastic.
I think this is the analogy I make with Harry Styles. I think he is like this generation's Robert Palmer.
Yeah.
He kind of looks like, right? Maybe Robert Palmer was his dad.
Who knows?
But yeah, he kind of has that look. He's a cool dude with really cool style. You know, he carries himself well. He's got, let's face it, really great pop songs.
He does, yeah.
And I've really grown to appreciate him as a true artist.
Yeah.
And
that whole group, One Direction, that, you know, several of them did solo artists after they broke solo projects after they broke up.
And it's all been good.
It's all great. It's like, okay, at One Direction I don't like so much, but when they split up and they go off their separate ways, these guys are awesome.
Yeah, and
these guys have talent.
And that's kind of the opposite of what usually happens in music.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
The whole thing is kind of bizarre in that way. They sold 3.2 million records.
Yeah.
So they were valid, obviously.
Yeah.
Whether or not you like the style or whatever. No pun intended style.
Yeah.
All right, and Lorde, we talked about her already. Royals was a big hit. Team, I think, made like number 6 or something that year.
Also a great song, yeah.
Yeah, and these were like songs that were, I believe, released the previous year, but it added fuel to the album sales of that particular year. Guardians of the Galaxy. Were you into that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the first movie.
Yeah.
I didn't like the sequel, but yeah, I loved how it brought back a lot of the old songs and the, you know, mixtape, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it did fuel a lot of exploration for younger people.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if nothing else, it was kind of cool in that way.
It was, yeah. And I love the song choices that they had on that mixtape, too. It was kind of obscure stuff. Some of it was, anyway.
Yeah.
I love how it brought it back to light.
Right. And then we mentioned Imagine Dragons, also Demons, I Bet My Life. Just really good songs, man. I hear Imagine Dragons and I'm not offended. I really like them a lot. I think they're another band. And it's weird. When they first started out, I kind of thought they kind of had that Coldplay type vibe, and they still do at times. But I think it's more of the underlying U2 influence that comes out in both of those bands.
With a lot more percussion.
With a lot more, rhythmic stuff going on. So that was, the top selling albums of that year. I thought I would cover some of those and some good stuff. And everything that you said in your intro, I totally get how if, let's say, I don't know, you'd been in jail and wasn't exposed to music, and somebody put these songs in front of you and like, hey, check out this particular year. I don't think you could come away without being impressed by it. So,
I think you're right.
Yeah. Well, this was fun, pal.
Did we leave anything out that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to mention. I just wanted to, like I said, bullet point a few things that were the big sellers for that year. So those were all the top 10 albums.
Well, overall, a great, whole representative of all the genres kind of year. So I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's one
Tell us what you think. Comments below.
Thanks for watching this episode of In a Darkened Room. You can find the link to this episode's companion Spotify playlist in the description. Darren and Chris welcome your comments. You can leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below. Follow In a Darkened Room on Twitter to receive updates and submit your ideas for what we should discuss in upcoming episodes. Darren and Chris are also on Instagram, so give them a follow there as well. All of these links can be found in the description below. While you're there, be sure to click subscribe and ring the bell.
All right, for our random topic, it's bowl time.
Bowl time.
Yeah. You want to draw, or
I'll draw. Okay, I'm feeling lucky tonight.
Get shaken up. There we go.
All right, this is where we pick a random category. You never know what you get. It could be.
What'd you pick for us?
Well, let's see. Bands that are perfect for the season or the weather.
Ah, very nice. Well, I've got to pick the M83 album right off the bat. That Saturdays Equals Youth. That's rainy day weather music right there, through and through. And I like some of Don Henley's slower stuff, like in the fall, like Boys of Summer and Sunset Grill. You know, in the fall, those just sound so good.
I'm going to pick a band that when I think fall, it's the first band I think of. It's one of my favorite groups ever. Rush. They, generally speaking, released all their albums in the fall because Geddy wanted to watch baseball. And that's really how it came to be, that their touring schedule and everything was kind of based on his ability or inability to watch baseball early in his career. So most of the Rush releases are in the fall. Albums like Signals, for instance, I just think it sounds better in the fall for whatever reason. And then, another band that I think of when I think summer, Cheap Trick, All Day Long.
One of my favorite a good summer band. Yeah, like if I were to pick, say, Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, I don't want to hear them in the wintertime.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't sound as good to me.
I agree.
So that's, that's style for me, at least.
Yeah.
You know, I could almost say it's not bands for me, it's more of style. The hard rock stuff I want to hear in the summer, and the slower melodic stuff I want to hear in the winter, in the colder months.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
All right, pal. Well, this was fun.
This was fun.
Yeah.
We'll be back again with another episode very soon. So take care, everybody.
See ya.